Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to today's class. I'll be taking you the fundamentals of design as related to colors. So now we'll be going through the basics of colors. Let's go through color system, color theories, and the rest. Now here's a popular quote. Oh, okay, I might not call it popular though, but yeah, here's a quote from Pablo Picasso. I mean, if you don't know the quote, you must not be Picasso. Um, so colors like features follow the changes of the emotions. Now, this quote just reminds me of this Disney movie. I don't know if you remember it. I'm trying to remember the name as well. So it's about this character where each of them they display different emotions. Like one displays anger, one displays love, one displays joy, and you could associate colors to each of these things, to each of these emotions. Like love, as well as you could associate love to red, you could also associate anger to red as well. Also, you could associate being sad or being moody as being blue, being sick as being green. So now, like once you, I'm sure even when we use WhatsApp, our WhatsApp sticker self, when you want to maybe use a sick emoji, the color there is usually green. You get so colors play a definite and an amazing role in every part of our lives in general. So now, even as much as I'll try to limit it to this design class today and the basics, I want you to to keep it in mind that colors play a huge role in our lives. Imagine if the whole world was in black and white. In as much as being in black and white is maybe a color per se, but imagine the world being in black and white. It would have been so awkward. Now we'll be going through the fundamentals of the class today. Now we'll start with color wheels. Now basically, what are color wheels? I think using this, I would like to go back in time, go back in history. So before we come back to the future, though. Now, in the history, this too goes way back before into the 1700s. You understand? It was an essential thing for the artist. It was essential for the artist and the designers to know. The fundamentals, let me just read this out. Grasping the fundamentals of the color wheel will help significantly in your color combo choices, especially if you're not versed in the universe of color theory. Now, let me zoom this in. So now, imagine a world where everything is mixed. I don't know how to explain this further, but imagine a world where the colors are used improperly. Like when you see something like love and you're seeing maybe a color blue, it usually will feel weird. Or maybe you're seeing someone being very angry. I mean, I'm sure most of us in one time or the other have watched animations when we see characters getting angry and immediately you see their faces turn red. You get so imagine watching that same animation and that same character is angry, and as the character is angry now, the face is turning blue instead. Like subconsciously, you would know something is wrong. You understand? You will start asking yourself, okay, although this person is angry, or although this character is angry, why is the face blue? You get it doesn't really relate. So now you can see that even if you've not even been taught the fundamentals of um, color theory, you understand, subconsciously there are some things that aren't sitting well, or there are some things that subconsciously you would know. Now how does the color wheel relate to the design world in general? Now there are different shades of color. I'll run you through each of them. We have the primary colors, we have secondary colors, and we have tertiary colors. You understand? Now, starting from the first one, all colors, all colors, like I mean, all colors come from some combination of primary colors. I'll run you through this quickly because I'm sure in a form of our elementary school or elementary education, we are taught about primary colors. So I don't want to bore us with these details. I want us to go through so much in color theory as it relates to the design world in general. And hopefully, by the end of this class, you'll be able to see colors in a different light, and as well as based on your track, either illustration, either um, flyer design, art design, or UI UX, you will see how colors relate. Now, let me explain this. Let me try and explain this clearly. Colors, although having a basic knowledge of these colors would play an amazing role in each of your tracks to, when you start processing on them, but you would start seeing different forms of applications, different ways this logo, sorry, my brand identity side is talking. So you would start seeing how these colors are used differently. You get, it's the same color, but it's used in a different way in your UI UX, in your illustrations. We start going into things like hues, things like shades and tints. But bringing it back to the basics, we'll go now to primary colors. Now, every form of color is made from this very, very, very three simplistic colors. Okay, I will not call them, they are like let me say the trinity in colors. So now you have your red, as highlighted here. You have your red, your blue, and your yellow. Now, every color imaginable was formed from the mixture of each of these. You get, and a mixture of each of those ones, and a mixture of those ones going on and on and on. That is why you get to see things like tomato red, and you start hearing things like cockroach brown. You get, so I leave that to our women though. Now, you have, on the color wheel, you have your primary colors, and now the secondary colors. Now, how does this work? The secondary colors work as a mixture of the parts, any equal parts of what the primary color, it results into the secondary color. Now, let me quickly run you through what this means. Now, look at this wheel. You have your red, you have your yellow, you have your blue. Now, secondary colors are formed from the mixture of either red and blue from this primary color scheme. Either you're mixing, which is what you're seeing here, either you're mixing red and blue. Now, remember, red, blue, and what? Yellow. Either you're mixing red and blue, or blue and yellow, or red and yellow. You get each of them now. Either you're mixing each of them to form what? Your colors, to form the secondary colors. Now, the secondary colors are like what? They are like a mixture of what? The primary colors. Now, moving into what? Tetrary colors. I hope I'm not going too fast. You can let me know if I'm going too fast. Okay. Now, we'll move to Tetrary colors. Now, these Tetrary colors are a mixture of your primary colors and maybe one of the nearest secondary colors. Do you understand? So now just, okay, I don't want to use that example. Okay, just take it as, I'm trying not to use, just to avoid being dragged. So I don't want to use too many examples. Now just imagine what the primary colors being mixed with the closest secondary colors. Now look at this wheel. These are the secondary colors formed from these primary colors. Now imagine mixing this teal kind of blue with this blue again. You understand? It forms a kind of shade of purple. Imagine mixing this shade of red and this shade of purple here. Do you understand? It gives you this form of purple. All right, so now that is what Tetrary colors are. Now, if I want to put it in a scale, you have, okay, if I want to put it in a scale, you have the primary, like it's the highest, like the trinity of the design. Then you bring it lower, you understand? You bring it lower, like let me say a family tree. When you bring it lower, you then have your your secondary colors underneath. Then now, when you go a bit lower under the hierarchy, you then have your Tetrary colors. Now, we are going to go into something called color psychology right now. Hopefully, I don't know if you have any questions, or I don't know if it's too early to start asking if you have questions, but I believe I've run through the whole color wheel. If you have any questions, please just start noting them down. I would still, like I said earlier, I'm a man who talks too much, but for the sake of this class and for the sake of understanding, I'm going to try my best to keep things to the basic and ensure you guys take the key points out. So now let's go into color psychology. I'm not a doctor. I don't teach psychology, or I'm not a psychiatrist. So now it's not that form of psychology you get to know or you get to relate with when you're maybe with a doctor, and so it's more of how colors, how colors relate with you, how colors relate with you psychologically. You understand? Now, let me quickly give you a rundown of the explanation. Now, color psychology, this is the gradual movement of colors. This is the gradual movement of color from one hue. Don't worry, we'll get to what a hue means. We'll get to what a hue means in a bit. Now, the gradual movement of colors from one hue to another, or tint to shade. Now, this can be very tricky. This can be really, really tricky, but it's just a gradual movement of these colors from one hue to another. Now, we can explore colors, making use of online resources, and start to practice first with one color, then with different tones, then advance by complementing these colors with others. Now, the color psychology also starts, I'm going to start with the basic colors as well, red, blue, and green. Now, this color psychology affects how you think, affects how you reason things. Do you understand? Now, how do I put it? Like I gave the first example of being angry. Do you understand? Being angry gives an indication of red. Now let's bring this home. Let's bring this home. Have you ever used a thermometer, for example, or okay, instead of that, let me see an example of being in the hospital. Back in the days when the nurses would put those what they call it, thermometer also under your armpits. You understand? When you are really sick or more, you know how red that thing will get. So now imagine getting maybe a nurse showing you a thermometer, and when she brings the reading out, instead of the reading to be red, you are seeing something like purple, or you are seeing blue. Honestly, I'll be confused, like, okay, what is going on? Now, this color psychology has played its way into every form of our lives. Now, we'll just run through some basics on the kind of feeling or the kind of psychological things that happen, the emotions you get when you see various forms of colors. Now, let's start with color red. Red, everybody knows red as, like, when you see red like this, it's danger. Do you understand? Now, red can signify, let's go straight into it. Red can signify danger, warmth, passion. Now, when we are talking about passion, all right, anger, danger, warmth, or passion. Now, passion can be in a form of love, can be, remember the Passion of the Christ. I'm sure if we watched it maybe in an R-rated movie, you would have seen blood everywhere when they were wiping Jesus and all. Okay, bringing it back home. Now, this form can increase the heart rate and raise blood pressure, and it can be overwhelming if used too much. Now, if you see something red, trying to bring it home now. Now, when you see the color red, sometimes immediately you see the color red, what kind of emotion runs through you immediately? You feel this form of your heart raising or your blood pressure, like you are not settled when you just see something red on your script. You understand? In your front, it can be overwhelming at first. Now, be cautious about these things. Now, color psychology, this is not the perfect rule, or this is not a standard rule that you should follow. Do you understand? Now, people have used different colors to portray different kind of things. That same color can be used to portray anger and warmth. And now, I'll give a popular brand as well that uses red. And when you see red, you're not seeing danger. Rather, you're seeing love and you're seeing happiness. Do you understand? A popular brand, which is something we drink almost every day, Coca-Cola. I mean, like, once I say Coca-Cola, everybody, the first color that comes to your head is red. Do you understand? Now, I remembered when Coca-Cola reduced the sugar content. What was the color they used for this thing? For the zero sugar, they used black. What was that feeling like? Like you could know that when you see a Coca-Cola bottle arranged on the shelves, you were seeing red all through, and you just go and you see black. Trust me, you want to go closer and be like, okay, why is this one black instead of red? But bringing it back to base, now it can give a feeling of anger, danger, warmth, and passion. Warmth and passion. I'm going to maybe dwell more on warmth and passion. Now, I would separate both of them. You have anger and danger, you have warmth and passion. Based on your level, based on how you get to apply colors, you understand, you will be able to properly communicate it as anger or danger, and you'll also be able to properly communicate it as warmth or passion. You have to be very cautious when you're applying these things and know how the content at which you're applying them. We go to blue. Blue generally represents trustworthy, calm, and peaceful. Now, I'm sorry for the person who wrote this, and although it's something we, we all will agree with, it is often used in the banking sector. Not just banking alone, it is used in the tech sector. I mean, there are so many tech brands, so many fintech brands that uses the color blue. We will not dwell on that. I really don't have any issues with them using it. Do you understand? But now the thing is what blue communicates a form of professionalism, trustworthiness, calm, and being peaceful. Although they tell us that water is colorless. Do you understand? We've associated the color blue to what? Water. When you go to the beach, if you've gone to the beach, there's this kind of still feeling, this kind of peaceful feeling you get. Now that's why blue is associated with that color. It can give a feeling of what? Of being trustworthy, of being calm, of being peaceful. I try to reduce my tone to explain blue, so that you get the feeling of what I'm talking about. Now, it can be relaxing as well. Jumping straight into color green. I mean, when you see color green, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Mother Earth. Like Mother Earth. Now, although we've started using so many, there's global warming and all, but green still brings it back to Earth. Like growth, it signifies rebirth, it signifies nature, stability, endurance, and abundance. I like that last word, abundance. Now, it also signifies what? Mainly growth. That is why you see so many health brands, they use the color green. Now, it's not because maybe they don't have any other color to use. It's what it communicates psychologically. Do you understand? Also, you can see some health brands as well use the color blue because of that feeling of peace they want and hospitality they want people to get. Now, there are people that have used color red in a health brand before. Trust me, that one did not go well. I mean, like I said again, it depends on your level of professionalism. Now, going straight into color psychologies. Wow, we have so many other ones. I'm going to run through them. I just love those trinity, like red, blue, and green. You understand? Jumping straight into yellow. Yellow is positive. It is optimistic. It is energetic. Very, very energetic. What is the color of Fanta? Fanta is yellow. Some people might use orange. If you want to use orange and argue with me, let's go to Mirinda. But now, let's use Fanta. Now, what does Fanta even describe themselves? That brand itself, they use the word fun every time they are portraying Fanta. Fanta is what? Fun. And what was the color they used to portray fun? Yellow. You can use other colors as well. Like I said, there's this caveat I'm always putting. It's based on how you understand these colors, how you get to understand these colors that you can then get to apply them. Now, you have purple. Purple brings a feeling of being sophisticated, being wealthy, being luxurious. You understand? I remember, back in the days, in even from my forefathers, in England and all. Okay, I was just joking though. The color purple was used to signify being noble, being a noble man, like being of a rich background. Also in the Bible, if you could remember, purple signified what? Luxury. It signified wealth. You will see instances where they use the color purple. Do you understand? You see instances where they use the color purple to signify what? Wealth. When it be like it's clothed in the robe, in a purple linen and things like that. So it signifies nostalgia. Also, you see brands that are either luxurious or flower brands as well. They use the color purple. Also, we'll go to pink. Try not to be sentimental about this. Pink is a color of vibrance. It's a color that sparks vibrance based on how you use it. Now, you have orange, you have brown, you have black. Now, orange also is bright, it's fun, it's friendly and playful. You understand? Also, you will notice it being used very well in food brands. Brands that are centered around food. You notice most of them they use the color orange. You understand? It is bright, it is fun, it is friendly and playful. So now, most times, people would either associate fun with orange or yellow. Another example of yellow, you have McDonald's. You understand? Everything now going to brown. Brown is a color of honesty, simplicity. You understand? It is used by organic companies. When you think about brown being used in a food brand, for example, what's the first food brand that will come to your mind? Coffee. Either coffee. If it's not coffee, it's chocolate. You understand? I'm sure people will relate more with chocolate than coffee. Now you have black. Black. When you think of black, if you want to compare, if you want to place black and a brand together, the first one that will always come to mind is Apple. Apple. Now, black signifies being bold, being powerful, being classic, being confident. Okay, black is getting too many praises. But let's just put it that black signifies what's confidence. It signifies this feeling of being bold. Do you understand? Now, so as with white, white signifies purity. Purity. You have gray. Gray is a color of being neutral. Do you understand? I'm sure there's this quote that goes like, when they say you're not black or white, you are like gray, like you're in between. That's what gray is. That's what gray is. Gray is more like a color of being moody, being conservative, like not taking any side. Do you understand? That is the kind of emotion gray communicates. Now let's jump into terminologies. Terminologies being words that can be associated with colors. Words that can be associated with colors. You have hue and you have tint. Let's start with hue. Now, I'll read this out loud. Hue, in general, is color. Now, in general, colors is used to refer to all colors, you understand, including black, white, gray, while hue refers to the origin of the color we see. Now, let's just take it that, let's just relate this with color appearance. How this color fits to us. It's based, now, it is the base of the colors we see, and it's always one of the six primary and secondary colors on the color wheel. Now, going back to hue, I'm trying to breeze through everything, so in case some things are not clear, you can always bring me back. All right, so now we have hue. Hue is a general color. Okay, all right. Hue is a general color. I would like to ask this question. What do you think of when you hear the word hue? It might be a complex question. Now, some of us have experience using Photoshop, and when we hear the word hue and saturation, we'll be like, okay, hue and saturation. But have you just sat down to think about, okay, what is the word? What does the word hue mean? I would love for some feedbacks. If you don't understand it, or if you don't understand the word hue, it's fine with me. I mean, we are all still learning about this thing. So now, hopefully we can jump into tint if we're not getting answers on hue. Okay. All right. I believe, yeah, hue can be tricky. All right. Let's just jump into tint. Now, in color terminologies, we have things called hue, we have things called tints, we have shades, and we have tones. Do you understand? Now, first of all, we'll go with tint. Now, tint is a lighter version of a given hue. Do you understand? It is a hue that has only white added to it. Sometimes it is a hue, I think you should take this as a keyword. It is a what? It is a hue that has white added to it. Now, how do I put this? So now, instead of using the word, the reason why we're using hue instead of color now is because of what? It specifies the origin. Now, when we're talking about the origin now, hue is like the origin, like the base color. Do you understand? Now, that base color can have a tint, and if you notice, there are directional arrows here going right. Let's just signify that as going to the light side and going to the dark side. Do you understand? We'll go straight into that. Now, a hue is like the base or the original color. Do you understand? Like the base color, the history, like the how the color is. Do you understand? And now, when you're talking about a tint, the tint is now like when you've added white. When you've added white to that hue, Do you understand? Not to that color now, because if I'm using the word color, you can be talking about different things. But now, when we use the word hue, we're talking about that specific origin of the color. Now, tint is what's the lighter version. So now the tint can range from a hue that is barely lighter than the original, you get, to almost what, white with a tiny amount of color in it. Do you understand? So now you would see this used in maybe UI UX design, sometimes in brand identity design as well, where that color has tints. So now it has the base hue, you get, and it goes to a lighter hue of that same color, of that same hue rather. It goes to a what? To a lighter one, to a lighter version. That is what tint is. Do you understand? Now going to shade. Shade now is the opposite of tint. A shade is a hue with only black added to it. Let's just call it the dark side. Now, if you notice the arrow is going back, so like I'm saying now, there's a central hue. You understand? One is going towards this side, the light part, and one is going towards the right side, which the left side, which is what? The dark part. Now, that is what a shade. Now, I've seen many people use this word incorrectly. They'll be like, oh, what shade of blue are you using? What shade of red are you using? And like, you barely see people say, what tint of red are you using? Or what tint of blue are you using? Do you understand? Now, they are very, very different, and we shouldn't use the word shade. Do you understand? We shouldn't use the word shade to classify the entire hue of that color. Now, like I said, it can of course be in varying amounts of black. Do you understand? So now the resulting color may be darker than the original hue, and it may almost be black. Do you understand? It may almost be black. So it starts from what? The original hue. Let's pick blue. You understand? And when it's going down, okay. Let me give a quick example just to share what I'm talking about. So currently I'm using Adobe Illustrator. Go into our classes, you will get to see more of how this is being used. So now, back to my screen. Let me quickly show you what I'm trying to talk about when it refers to shades and tint. Okay, so now, let's take a base color, blue, a very basic one. So now, we have blue here. Do you understand? Now, I'll give you a very, let me say, an automated tool with Illustrator. Now, it will bring out the tints and the shades right now. So now I've selected the base hue, which is this you're seeing now. So now we'll go to this part called color guide. Do you understand? Now notice this part in the color guide. I don't think I can zoom this in, but now let me just create duplicates of this. I'll go towards tint, and I'll make 2 more here. And I'll go towards, okay. Okay, all right, like I said, the word tint has been, okay, all right. So now the word tint has been used, like I believe it's just a community or a cultural thing. So now the word tint, I'm sure it has been associated with like tinting your hair. You understand? So now, if you even really notice, I think that's the right word when you say the word you tinted your hair, because almost we all Africans, our hair color is usually black. You understand? So when you tint your hair, you are tinting your hair maybe gold, for example. Now that's a proper example. Tinting the word what? Gold. Tinting your hair. Okay. Tinting your hair gold. Now, if you have any question, please. Okay, so now there was a question here. Okay, there's a question here. How do we combine the color? All right, that's a perfect question. I'll come back to that. It's meant to answer that one soon. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pick some questions quickly, because once I go deep into this, it's going to be really insightful. So I thank you for Runo, your question or your suggestion. So now, going back into shades, please let me take something. Now going into shades and tints. Now you remember, okay, let me just give this a border. Please don't feel weird if I'm just going around things and we've not introduced you to these tools yet. We're going to introduce you to them in coming classes. So now I'm using this hue of like pink to signify the base hue of this blue now. Do you understand? Now I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up this direction now, which is what? Now if you remember what is going in this direction, right, it's called what? The tint. Do you understand? Now which is what? A lighter shade. You see, I just made a mistake there. I said a lighter shade. That was not actually correct. It's called what? A tint. Do you understand? It might be hard for us to use, and trust me, if you're in a local environment where you have to use the word a lighter shade, please do. But have it at the back of your mind that it's called a tint. Do you understand? Now, like I said, Illustrator has an amazing tool that helps describe tints and shades, or that helps you use them. Not every time. I would not really advise you using this every time, but like maybe if you're in a haste or you have to get stuff done, yeah, you can use it. So now we are back to blue. Do you understand? Now if you look at this color guide here, this is our base hue. Do you understand? Now if you look at this top left here and top right, what are you seeing? Can you see an arrow in this center? I'm sorry if I cannot zoom really deep. Look at this center here. You see something like an arrow in the middle here. Can you see it here? So now that signifies like the base hue, the original hue. I hope I don't change the color. So now if you look at the right side here, you're seeing tints. Do you understand? You're seeing tints. Now, there are so many tools out there, but like I really enjoy tools that are very deliberate about how they explain things, about how they communicate the proper terminologies to you. Do you understand? Now you see Illustrator gives you the word what? Tint, and it gives you on the left side here what? Shades. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the class will be available to you. Okay, you missed the difference between tint and hue. Okay, I'll come back to that too. Those of us using Figma, how are we going to get tint and shade? All right, we'll get to that as well. Like, when you're exposed to these tools, it's not going to be a problem. Now, there's the manual method, but now, once you start using Figma, you know that there are so many plugins that you can use to generate both shades and tints. Now, yeah, okay, Tor. Like, I think I would have loved if this guy used THOR instead. That would have even been more exciting. But yeah, thanks, Tor. Tint is adding white to a color, while shade adds black to the color. Like, it adds a black hue to it. Yeah, so now, tint and hue are not similar. It's tint and shades that you can give a comparison between. You understand? A hue is like the base, like it's what you refer to. Colors is like a general term. Colors is like a general term. When you're being more specific, that's when you use hue. You understand? I'm using a lighter, a hue of this base color. Do you understand? I may not be putting it right, but please pardon me. I'm trying to rush through the class. So now going back to, okay, I'm not trying to rush. I'm still going to give you the basics as promised. So now if you look at the Illustrator tool, the Illustrator color guide here, I'm trying my best not to run you through Illustrator as well. But like if you're currently opening Illustrator, you'll be able to see what they call it. When you go to the window button here, you'll be able to see the color guide feature in case it's not in your Illustrator. For those of you in the illustration class and maybe art class, you would see color guide here. So in case you're not seeing it, and ensure you're using Essentials Classic for now. Now, the reason why I'm sorry for those of you going through Figma, you understand? I'm just trying to make this very clear. Ensure you're using Essentials Classic for those of you starting in a basic or a beginner mode of using Illustrator. Using Essential Classic, like it's going to just give you the essentials, like the essentials, as the name implies, the essentials you need to get things done. Now you have shade here. Now just notice what happens. Now I'm in this original hue here, this base hue, you understand? Later on, I might pick a different tint and use it as my base hue, depending on how, maybe when I want to use it for an identity, or I want to use it for UI UX project. You understand? I may use a different tint of that color and make it my base hue or my primary color. Now, picking this as the base hue, now let's make a tint out of this. Now, if you notice this arrow here, it is showing us the base hue. Now, let me just go a step further into making it lighter. So now, once I click here, you notice the tint has changed. Now, it is this same hue you get, but just a tint of it. I believe value and saturation. No, first, you don't tint and tint and shade are not the same as value and separation and saturation. I think the word you're looking for is hue and saturation, not value and saturation. Tint and shade are not the same. Now tint is going deeper into that hue. Like how do I bring this down to home? Okay, so now you okay, somebody else is taking typography class, so I don't think it's going to be proper citing an example with typography instead. But I think let me just use an example of typography. So now you have a typeface. We call it fonts, but we have a typeface. We have the one used here, space grotex. Do you understand? We have space grotex here. Now, in using space grotex, you have things called what? Weights. The font weight, which is the weight of this typeface now. You have the what? The lighter one, and you have the heavier one, or we use the word bold. That is how specific we are going into. That is how tint and shade are related to hue. Do you understand? Now, tint and shade of a hue. Now, you don't, tint and shade is not meant to be regarded. Is there a plugin for Figma users named Tints and Shade? I really am not sure about that. I know foundation colors in Figma. I mean, over the course of this class, Google will be your best friend. There are so many questions, like, you know, you just search, you go to Google and you type, what's the word? Figma plugin for generating shades and tints. Do you understand? It will generate it out of a whim, easily. Like, Google would be your best friend. But I'm not really sure of that name, Tint and Shade. Maybe if you want to create a plugin for Figma, you can use the word Tint and Shade. It might really come out cool. All right. So now going back into this, let's go through tints quickly. Now, I'm going to give you a different tint, like another tint of this same hue now, which is this. Sorry. Now, you notice how it's growing. You understand? The more you push forward, where do you get to? You get to white. Now, let me show you a trick quickly. Okay, let's go through shades as well. When you go through shades, like you notice, if you notice this shade, what is the final bus stop? All these colors, they are different. You're seeing different hues here. Do you understand? You have blue, you have purple, you have orange and all. But where is the final shade ending? All of them are similar. Where is the ending? It's ending in black. So that is what a shade means, like adding a black hue, adding it to that base color till it gets to black. Same with this thing. Same with this tints. You are just pouring white. You are mixing white. Just picture yourself being a painter, mixing white till it gets to the final white. Do you understand? So now, like, if I click on this shade, can you see? There's a different shade now. You click on this again, it brings a different shade. Now, this is very, very close to to black. Do you understand? Shade leads you to black, while tint leads you to, wow, you guys are really amazing. At least I'm really glad that you guys are getting to understand tints and shade. But tints and shades are not the only thing we are meant. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone though, but tints and shade are not the only things we're meant to learn in this class today. So, okay, like I said, let me just quickly show you. As I've shown you the one of shade, if you notice, these ones are light a bit, but they've not gotten to the actual white. Now, if I click on this last one I picked here, this tint, now let me make this my base hue. I hope I've not spoken too loud now. Let me make this my base hue. Now, if I pick this now and I select, now just notice on my color guide, let me erase all these ones so I'm not confusing anyone. Let me make this my base one now, my base hue. Now, if you notice, look at Illustrator. What is it telling you here? It's saying what? Let me try and bring the tooltip back. Set base color to what? Current color. Set base hue to this current what? This current hue of this color. So now what are you noticing here? Do you notice the tints have changed again? Do you understand? And the shades are what? Growing again. Now, if I bring this, I select this. Let me select this. Select this. It's already growing very what? You see how fainter it's getting? It's already growing close to white. Same thing. If I still select this as my base color again, do you understand? Pushing forward now, we've just gotten to white. Do you understand? Notice there's no difference here now. We've just gotten to white instead. So now this is just the base difference. Do you understand? Let me not just say base difference though, but like this is how hue and tints work together. So now let's go to shade. I've already explained shade. Let's go to tone. Now tone is very similar to tint and shade, but instead of being a hue with what? Black and white added to it, it is a hue with only gray added to it. Now when you use the word tone, do you understand? Now before we're adding what? We're adding, let me make it local, or let me just not use the word hue anymore so I don't confuse people too much. Let's just say tint and shade. You've been adding the color, instead of me saying hue now, the color white and black to it since. Now, for when you use the word tone, I've heard people still use tone as well. You're adding the what? You're adding the color gray to it instead. And trust me, the result will not be the same as tint and shade. Instead of having the color will be weird at first, or the hue maybe going downwards. Do you understand? Definitely, it doesn't matter what base hue you're using. It's always going to end at the dark side or the gray side. Do you understand? So now the gray that is added to make a tone must only consist of black or white. No other colors. Many colors that are considered gray actually have a base that is hue. Tone colors tend to be viewed as more sophisticated than pure hues. Right. It might be a bit complicated, but you know what? For now, we'll come back to that. If there are any questions on that, okay. Wow, I think I'm a good comedian. All right, so now let's go to color terminologies. You have warm versus cool. Now, basically, warm colors are those that resemble or symbolize heat, and while cool colors are colors that are attributed to ice or cooler temperatures. Easy peasy, warm, cool. Do you understand? Now, for example, you have red, orange. Red, orange is usually associated with what's warm. I mean, the sun. Even when you see a sunset, it's usually associated with either red or, in fact, maybe a mixture of all of them, yellow, orange, and red. Do you understand? But now, when you're associating the word cool, do you understand? When you're associating cool, you understand? You see the word blue, purple, green pop up sometimes. Now, it might be a different shade of green. I'm sure if I'm using this word shade or tint now, it might work fine with you, right? So, that's for warm and cool. So when they say, for example, this picture looks warm, I mean, you understand what they mean. And when they say this picture looks cool, you understand? You can get more understanding. So now you have things called what they call it? Color schemes. Now, color schemes now is, let me just use the word color pairing. Now, people would use color schemes when they want to pair colors, most times. Do you understand? So, for example, let me speak in brand identity terms now. For example, you're picking you're picking a base primary color. You start and you're like, oh, this brand is a tech brand. I want it to be blue. Okay, cool. I'm going with blue. Then you're then like, okay, I need supporting colors. You're seeing the word I'm using here. I need supporting colors to maybe bring this brand to life. Do you understand? Because over time, using just blue all through. Do you understand? If you even notice the tone of this, the whole tints and shades of this presentation, you see the base hue here, which is blue. You even see the logo. You see how things are represented. We are using different tints and shades. Do you understand? Tints and shades can be used when you go into. I think I'll use UI UX design. Sometimes tints and shades will be used to create this form of differentiation or hierarchy, for example. Now we have analogous. Let me make analogous the star boy here. I'll try to avoid the other ones, so I go through them one by one. You have analogous. It's just picking colors that are similar or close by to each other. Do you understand? Around the wheel. This is called a color wheel. Do you understand? Now it doesn't. The color wheel can be wider. Can be way wider than what you're seeing here. Do you understand? I mean, some ladies or some guys will see this and be like, oh, lemon pink is not here, or tomato gray is not here, something like that. You understand? So the color wheel can be larger than this. Do you understand? But try and maybe keep it a bit base, a bit constrained a bit, so that you can pick great colors in no time. You know, you don't want to avoid. You want to try to avoid the whole decision paralysis. When you have too many colors to play with, you just get paralyzed and you're looking at all the colors. You don't know which one to go with. Do you understand? So now you have analogous. You understand? Just picking what colors that are similar, colors that are closest. Like you're just picking the broader or the ones closest to it on the color wheel. Do you understand? Now we have complementary. Now when you say complementary is just what picking a color that complements it, opposite on the wheel. So now notice how it is on the wheel. You see green here. What is opposite it or what is facing it? Imagine this thing is maybe on the ground, you understand, and it's standing facing somebody else. Do you understand? So the person or the color facing it on the opposite wheel is called what? Is on the color wheel is a complementary color. So for example, I pick blue, you'd see orange. Do you understand? But when you're going with something like, what do you call it? Let me say analogous. I'll give you a good example of analogous. When you see most health brands, when you see them using green, you also notice that they are using yellow or orange beside it. You notice they are using what? Analogous. They're monochromatic. Monochromatic is you're picking shades or tints of one color in that color wheel. Do you understand? So now, maybe this is the base color of this one you're picking, the base hue. You see you're picking a light, a tint, and you're picking a shade of that same base hue. Do you understand? That is what monochromatic is. You have what? Split complementary. Split complementary just means you're picking the color. You pick maybe this one as the base color, the color that complements it on each side. Do you understand? So now, the color that complements green on this wheel is orange. The one that complements green on the left part can be purple, can be blue. Do you understand? So just maybe, for example, let's take green. Do you understand? It has to be maybe a bit close. Do you understand? So you pick maybe green, for example now. You pick green, and now you're going left towards a complementary color and right towards a complementary color. Do you understand? That is what split complementary color is. So in color system, you have additive, you have subtractive. Basically, I'll just call it RGB and CMYK. Now, I'll just bring this down to home in real world terms. So now, mostly when you use additive colors, I would believe you would want to use them on digital prints or digital designs. And subtractive. Now, this additive, this RGB. Would I just say addictive and subtractive? You understand? The tones are very different. Now, in addictive, it is using RGB as the base colors. You understand? In subtractive, it is using what? CMYK as the base colors. Primary colors. If base is, it's using what? CMYK as the what? Subtractive colors. So now as the base colors, which is why when you go to a printer and you've done your beautiful design in RGB, you understand? You then forget to do it in CMYK. And when your design comes to life on a printed material, I'm sorry, sometimes you might want to model the printer, and so that's because of what the color system they are using, you get, is way different you understand, than the one you're using on a digital scheme. Now, these are some few things to note in RGB. It has vibrant tones, it is additive, it is used on what? Like I said, it's used on monitors and for display. So your display cameras, your screens are usually RGB. You understand? It's 3 channels. When I say 3 channels, RGB, 3 channels, then, you know, it expands from there. But it has a smaller file size. Based on it is optimized for the digital spectrum, you understand? It has a smaller size. So you will notice when you save your file in RGB and when you save your file in CMYK, one is usually larger than the other. You get, there are many things that happen when you're saving your file. For example, maybe when you want to print something. Now you have CMYK, it is subtractive. It has cool tones. So if you notice, these tones are not as vibrant as this. The ones here are not as vibrant as these guys here. Do you understand? Which is why they are CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. Key being black, not 100% black. I don't know if that's a word. I don't know if I should use 100% black, but you notice when you go to a printer and try printing in black, it doesn't come as 100% full black, as you would see on your digital screens. So now the only way to use this, or the best method to use this, is on a print media. It has 4 channels, like I said, CMYK, and it is easier. Yeah, it is actually, the reason why they use CMYK on printers is because it's easier to use. And like it's a way easier color. Like the colors that can be generated from CMYK are much more constrained or limited than RGB. They are much more constrained than RGB. Honestly, I'm not sure I want to go into that. So now you have hexadecimal color codes. The hexadecimal color code is just is generated from the word hexa being 6. You understand? Now it is a 6-digit combination of letters and the numbers that represent them on RGB color. Now the first value pair refers to what? The first value pair refers to red. First value pair being what? Arrow. First value pair. So that is the first value of the first numbers 1, 2. Let me say there are 6. What is a 6-digit code? So the first value pair, the first 1 and 2, represents the what? Red. Then the second pair, which is 3 and 4, represent green. And the third pair, which is 5 and 6, it represents what? Blue, with decimal values ranging from 0 to 5. Quickly, RGB is an additive color space, meaning that when all 3 colors are put together, the result is white. When all 3 colors are put together, the color is white, or in decimal, 255, 255, 255, and the opposite end of that is what? Black. Let me quickly show you what this means. So let's pick this color. Now picking this color, when you double click here, you see something called what? RGB. So you see when we're talking about the decimal, the percentage just now, this is it here. You have 23. You have for green, it's what? 36. So now those value pairs are what? Represented in what they call it, in digits now. So now let's just say this arrow, which is a decimal value, the highest value is 255. So this decimal value of 237 represents what? ED. Now, just to do you get now? So now we are using hexadecimal. So now 237 in hexadecimal is what? ED. 36, which is the percentage of blue, is what? 24. So now that is what hexadecimal means. I mean, you wouldn't want to start maybe in your color, instead of picking colors, you will not start putting percentage, like decimal value for red, you are putting 104. For green, you are putting the 23. It doesn't make sense. That was why the hexadecimal codes were brought out. You understand? To make things easier. I quickly want to run through something else, which is why I would try my best to be done with this. So now you have a power. Now let's give examples. Colors that can be paired easily, just so you can grasp things easily. So now it requires a lot of exposure to colors with keen eyes to understand color selection and the significant roles it plays in guiding and retaining attention. Do you understand? If possible, it is always if possible, I would prefer you always use natural colors for your design. It takes a great deal of mastery to know when to break the rules. What am I talking about natural colors? You have your purple, you have your red, you have your green. You know, when you start playing into different mixing colors, for example, you're mixing, you have like a kind of shade of, a kind of tint of red rather, that looks close to maybe, I think I would use the word pastel. Pastel colors, like a kind of toned down color of red, for example, a pastel red. You understand? These colors now, when you start mixing them separately, I mean, you would, like I explained earlier, using like a wide range of colors. Do you understand? It takes mastery to actually know how to use them. Do you understand? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Ronke. Monochromatic color is picking different tints and shade of a base color. So now, pairing colors. These colors can be paired easily and can sit on themselves. However, this list is not exhaustive. Now, this color pairing is given to you from your color schemes. Again, it's given to you from your color schemes, which is the analogous, complementary, monochromatic, and split complementary. You have this thing as well. You have the use of these colors or gradients as well. First things first was color pairing. So now, another example is using it on what? On gradients. So now just notice this same shade, a shade of green and what? A tint of this green. Do you understand? Now notice how, okay, okay. Please give me a moment. I'm sorry. All right. So now on gradients is the gradual movement of a color from one hue to another, or from a tint to a shade. It's the movement of a color from one hue to another. Now, or what? From a tint to a shade. Going back here, this is a shade, this is a tint. Now, these are two different hues, going from one hue to another. Now, this example of green and another, this is a tint of green, this is a shade of green. Do you understand? Now, that is how these gradients work. You understand? So you can choose, with this kind of understanding, you can then decide to say, okay, I want to create a gradient. Do I want to use shades and tints of a base color, or do I want to mix two hues together? Do you understand? Maybe red and green, for example. Now you have color palettes. Now color palettes in the digital world, I remember even using color palettes in Paint in those days. You know, it's generated from this, I don't know if maybe it's an English word, but like, you know, when you see artists with their, palette, that board, there's a board they hold on their hand. There's a board they hold on their hand. Do you understand? Where they put colors on it to paint. It's called a palette. Do you understand? There's a board you see all those artists when they're painting on the board they hold on their hand is called a palette. Now, a color palette in the digital world now refers to a full range of colors that can be displayed on a device screen or other interfaces. And in some cases, a collection of colors and tools for use in Paint and Illustrator programs. Do you understand? So now, you will see this in cases when we jump into Illustrator, you understand, where you will see a color palette. Now, that color palette will determine the type of colors used in that illustration. You understand? Now, remember these hacks. I'll go through them quickly. You have the traditional colors. When designing, recalls back to natural colors and try not to reinvent the wheel. You get, save yourself the headache. Do you understand? And just use traditional colors, natural colors. The grass is still green, and red still means what? Danger. Yeah. So you have avoiding too many colors. It takes a lot of mastery to know. I mean, I could remember the rebrand of Burger King. There were several colors used on the illustrations, on the logo, the identity itself, but it took mastery for them to actually know how to use these things. Do you understand? White on any shade. When you start to run out of color combination idea, you can always add enough shade to any color of your choice and giving the contrast, and I'll say the same inversely. So now when you're working on a brand identity, for example, you will notice the use of shades and tints will be very, very essential. And when you're working on UI UX, the use of shades and tints would really, really come out handy. Gradients on text. You may be also able to use gradient on your text and not on the background alone. But we encourage you to find visual balance as you use, and also do not avoid too many colors. I quickly wanted to run you through one hack. It's called color naming, and the use cases. Now, I'll try to bring that to base. Now, color naming, you have definitive colors, you have semantic colors, and you also have contextual colors. Do you understand? Definitive colors is when, for example, those of you that will be joining the art class and maybe little of illustration, you will notice that you're using hues a lot more rather than tints and shades. So now because you are using hues a lot more, you will now start naming one. Maybe you used a hue, like a specific hue of green that looks maybe close to or a hue of red rather, that looks close to the same hue of tomato. You call it tomato red. You pick another one, you call it what? Tomato this, or you call another one cabbage green. You understand? But now, that's for what's definitive. You're giving the color a kind of definitive name. When you go to semantics, that's when you start using shades and you start using tints. You now start calling things like primary. You have like the primary color. Maybe you use it for UI UX or use it for brand identity. You now start using things called what? Semantics. You are saying this is primary. You're saying this is primary and what? This is what? Secondary colors. And as far as you're calling it primary and secondary colors, also, you are giving each of those shades, maybe the highest tint, you're calling that one primary 100. You're using the darkest shade, you're calling it that one primary 900, for example. Do you understand? That's semantics. I'll tell you why these color naming conventions are being used. Then the last one is contextual. Now, contextual can maybe be more relatable to developers. Now, developers, when you join the UI UX track, I'm sure you'll be exposed a lot to this use of semantics and contextual colors. For example, the developer would understand, say, when you're using primary 100 a lot more, maybe primary 100 is used on border colors. Maybe when you're creating cards and creating buttons, you're using primary 100, which is the highest tint of maybe a blue hue. You understand? You're using it more on borders. The developer would rather prefer to call it border color instead of primary 100. Do you understand? Now, this will help you more. You might be asking, okay, why do I need things like this? Do you understand? When you start documenting your designs, you understand, and giving it to developers or giving it to your customers, you understand, instead of presenting hexadecimal code, you understand why you should decide to use tomato red or cockroach green instead. And when you are sending things to developer, you see why it's better to call it border color than tomato red. Do you understand? Thank you very much. My awesome colleague would continue this design class. We'll be taking you on another fundamental, which is on typography. I know Leia took, the rudiments. I'm going to use it in the stems, the rudiments of typography when he took you through the spine and everything. Do you understand? Took you through anatomy. Now, Timmy, my good friend, is going to take it a step further. Do you understand? I'm sure he will smile more than I do. Do you understand? So just in case I was not smiling or not, please don't be angry with me. When we jump into the next class, or the next class where you see me, we'll be doing a lot more. Thank you very much for joining this class. We're good now, Abby.
focus like on color. Very well done, bro. And now this afternoon we'll be going a bit deeper in typography. So before we get started, I know we've had like a lot of like talk about typography before, so I just want us to like just have a refresh. So I want us to think of typography like this. You know, have you ever seen someone and then you say, "Ah, this person," you look at like you see someone's handwriting and just immediately you form an opinion about the person. Like I remember sometimes in secondary school that time, whenever we have a new students and maybe for some reason we see the person's handwriting and you're like, ah, this person will be fine, or ah, you see this person like, ah, this person's handwriting, this person will not know book. I think that's basically how typography also works. It feels like it feels like you can communicate things just from words. Words are powerful, and words have to be said like in the right way. There's a way you can say maybe I'm hungry. There's a way you can say I'm hungry, and there's a way you can say I'm hungry. Like, and everywhere, every one of them has different interpretations. So like it's just what we're going to be talking about today: typography and like the rudiments and like the ins and outs of typography. So let's just dive right in. Let's dive right in and let's see what we have. So let's start with the first one. Okay, sorry. Before I move forward, I want to like share something that I'd written down here. So just give me a minute. It said, yeah, I got this from the internet. It said, typefaces are clothes for words, and like finely tailored suits. It's the detail in their composition that add interest. So it's not just like the words, but the ways the words are said. There's a way someone can say something to you, and that it will make a whole different meaning than when someone says another thing to you. There's a way someone will say, like, I want to do something, and there's a way the person say that, and he just has different meanings, just from the tone of the voice and stuff. There are some people that when you talk to them, and like they feel, yeah, okay, this person's talking to you, and when you are talking with them and you shout, they can all start crying. Like just even if you are saying the same words, they are just crying because they don't like the way it's being said. Like even when we are using on WhatsApp or having a conversation on WhatsApp, like when you're talking with your friends casually, you're using your lowercase, and then when you now maybe switch to uppercase, your friend can be like, why are you shouting at me now? You're not really shouting, or just because you use this in uppercase, it just feels like you're shouting. So like those are the importance of words, and that's how it can be done. So let's just dive right into today's class. I just wanted us to give a bit of context of what typography is, so we don't look at it as one very abstract concept. So now there are different ways typography can be. Approached, and these are some of like the general principles on how to use typography well. So the first one is vary font size. So if you look at this first case here, we can see that there's something. If we look at this case one, where we have the two poles of our capacity, one with the other, something like that. All this, everything feels like the same. There's nothing that really stands out to anyone because it just feels like okay, everything is carrying the same weight. So if you're asking someone what is like the main text here or the main heading, it can be lost in translation. If you look at it from like a farther distance, let's say you are like a lot of distance away, and you look at it, you just might not know the difference between one or the other. So that's for case one. But if we now take a little time to like just try to adjust it a bit, and like you can see here now that we have character and intellect as the main and the most prominent thing on it. So this is what we call hierarchy. It helps us to know what is the first thing to focus on and what's the other thing we want us to focus on. The primary elements and the secondary elements, the one that is supporting and the one that is the main idea. So the main ideas are always the one that has to be bold and has to stand out, and typography helps us with that. In one of the ways is which we vary typefaces. So one of the ways you can use to do this, to achieve this effect, something like this is, imagine you have something like this first case scenario. So what makes this one different from the other is like we can see this character and intellect. We made it way bigger. So a way that can be achieved is to maybe double the point size. So let's say the point size of this is, let's say, maybe 12. We can make it 40. We can make it 24, which doubles it. So it makes it incredibly bigger. And we can also maybe reduce the font size or reduce the weights of these typefaces. I'm sure we've learned about weights of typefaces. We've learned about font sizes and stuff like that. So I don't want to like go through so much of that rudiment again, so we can like make progress on things like this. Another thing I just want us to note at this point is that typography is, without typography, design is like mostly lost. It is possible for you to design without using pictures, but it's not possible for you to like to actually do some real good design without using words. So you have to have, like, there is no how you want to escape it. Even if you are good at photo manipulation, that can be used as art. But if you really want to do work as for design, you have to learn how to use these things properly. So it's very, very fundamental. So yeah, like there was a quote I saw today which says, I think it said typography is 90%, design is 90% typography. So if you can handle typography, you can handle almost any type of project. So I actually want to give an example of this before we move forward. I was doing a bit of research on Pinterest today, so I would show my screen now. I think this was it. So like these are all typographic posters. Like these are all posters that really convey a typographic message. Sorry about this not loading. It was loading earlier. Okay. So we can see that. I will just try to zoom into one so we can have a discussion about it. So let's look at this. Now, this is just words. You can see it's graphic dialogue, but like it has a lot of meaning to it. It has a lot of zest to it. It feels alive. Even though there are no pictures, you can almost tell the emotion that this person was trying to convey with this image. You can see that okay, the person's like, it's like trying to shout, it's trying to show that it's dynamic, it's trying to show that it's like, it's out there, it's not just a boring, and like you just know that if you go for this kind of events, it's going to maybe a jazz event or something, like you just feel that this is going to be something that will be exciting. So it's not just like a normal boring or standard event. So things like this typography in design, without like having to do that much, sorry about that. Let me see if I can get back to my screen there. I don't think I can, but it's fine. Okay, I can. So yeah, just like that. So let me see if we can find more type posters. So yeah, these are just ways typographic. Now, one of the ways that we just explained now is having like varying sizes. So for something like this now, you can see graphic really big, and then you can see the other things really small. So what you can see, like all from the idea from this poster, is that what they want you to see first is graphic. What they want you to see first is graphic. They don't want you to see any other thing first. And then when you now, okay, when that graphic catches your attention, you now say, okay, then what are the other things you want to see? Then they make it a little, really little. But you see that the bigger one is taking more preference and it's taking more like cognizance than the rest, because they want you to see that first. Because like you cannot be having, like, if there's a plethora of ideas, everything cannot be shouting at you at once. One has to stand out, and one has to be like telling the main story, and then others will just support it. Others support the concept. So it's like, maybe let's say we are having a church program, and then you just combine like the time and the dates and the theme of the program and the church that is organizing, you just put everything into one place. It makes no sense to people doing it. So you have to find a way to find an hierarchy of the fonts. Okay, which one comes first? And the one that comes first is one that will take the biggest size, what you want them to see first. Then what you want them to see second can be the medium size, and then what you feel, okay, once these two things have caught their eye, the other details they might need to know that will also be relevant for them will now be the little ones that we see on the screen here. So yeah, that's I wanted to establish. Sorry, let me check what's going on. Okay, so that's the main idea of this. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'll try to answer them as we go, maybe after the class, and we'll see if there are any questions so we can take them. And so yeah, the next one is leading and tracking. I know we've talked a bit about this too, but it's also very important. So you know, there are sometimes you see things and you just feel that this thing is not just aligned. It just doesn't feel right. Let me not say aligned. It might not just feel right. You look at it and you're like, something about this thing is off. You're not totally sure. Sometimes it's the tracking, sometimes it's the leading. So here's the general rule that this thing goes with. It says, as the font gets bigger, the tracking and the leading should decrease, and as the fonts become smaller, the tracking and leading should increase, except in special cases. What does that mean? So let's say we are having something like this intellect and character. Now, if you look at this first case, the tracking is actually like, you can see that it's a bit disproportionate. There are some places that it's bigger, there are some places it's smaller, which you should know. And you can see that the leading for this one is actually a lot. And then you can see that for these small places, you might not be able to see very well. This small size, let me try to highlight the bits. So you might not be able to see that part very well because it's really, really little. It's really, really little. But now, when you now take your time for small objects like this, so like the smaller it becomes, so let's say it's becoming smaller. The smaller the thing becomes, the more you increase the leading around it, you increase the spacing around it, so it can be obvious for the eye to see. When the eye cannot see, like when the thing becomes very small, the eye begins to find spaces so it can like rest in between. And if it's just going all through from here to here, and there is no spacing in the letters, like at a very small scale, you will not see anything because it feels just very, very little. So here's like a correct way in which it can be used. Now you can see that this was brought closer together. It was brought closer together than the first one. So it was brought closer together because now we know it's big, so it doesn't need to take that much space. So just by that, we know, okay, yeah, this works. And then this, we increase the size significantly because it becomes easier for the eye to read. The eye does not have to like look for, like strain itself to see because the lines are very well spaced. It's spaced in between each other. So yeah, that's how this works. So the smaller, let me just reiterate, the smaller the size of the font, the more spaces it should have in between. And the bigger the size of the font, the less space it needs to have. It does not need to have that much space if the letters are big, and does not need to have like it needs to have a lot of space when the letters are becoming small, so your readers can read it. This applies both in product design, it applies both even in magazine design, applies in poster design. These are the things that help people to have good experiences when they are going through anything you've worked on. So these are some of the things we should take note of. Moving forward, let's find the next one. So yeah, varying font width. So before we've talked about the sizes, the varying sizes. Now we want to talk about the weight. The weight is like literally how fat or how thin the type is. So it's not really about, now we're not really talking about how big or how small. It's not about like is it small, is it like really thin or really fat. So that those are the things we are really trying to go for this. So sometimes there are occasions where you will come and then you find out that you cannot really reduce the size. And you cannot really reduce the size, but you want to place emphasis on a particular word. You want to put the emphasis on a particular word, but you don't want to reduce the size of that word. So what you can do is this. Most fonts or most typefaces have varying weights, meaning you can go from thin to extra bold to black. So you can find a way in between that to show emphasis. So one of the ways you can do that, let's look at this, fortune and fame. If you look at fortune and fame currently, you don't see any difference between both of them. They just look alike. But now let's say I want to make fame more like bolder than fortune. So what I can do is I can reduce the weight of the and fortune just to make fame stand out without reducing the size. So here's what I mean by reducing the weight. So look at this now. The fortune, like the weight has been reduced to maybe this looks something like a thin or maybe a medium or regular, and then the fame looks very bold. So just like that, when you look at it, the fame stands out to you immediately. Fame stands out to you immediately. Graphic design is about, and graphic design generally is also about contrast, being able to see things for the way they are and the way you want them, the way people to see it. So just like this, I have placed emphasis on fame, even though like fortune and is there. This is the first thing you notice. This is the first thing you notice when you look at that kind of thing. So these are some of the ways you show like contrast, and you make good, like you have good typography. That shows that you have good knowledge in typography when you are able to show different ways in which you can show emphasis on different things. So even if you are using the same size, it still looks kind of different from each other. So let's go forward, and the next one is proper font selection. So I like to see font selection or typeface selection as like voices. In my head, they're like voices. So they're like, okay, so when you see something, now everybody's saying, I'm a man. There's one someone can say, I'm a man. Another say, I'm a man. I'm a man. Everybody's saying I'm a man, but we're all saying it differently. So there's a way someone will say something, you ask, is that person a man or a woman? Like, even though both of them are saying the same thing, the person that just spoke now, is that person a man or a woman? So it's just because now we are not going to look at fonts in that same type of like that same kind of context. So where we have something like this, when we say welcome to the temple. Welcome to the temple looks kind of like, this temple looks very, very playful, relaxing, welcome. It almost feels like a game, something that a child would want to play. If a child sees something like this, they want to pick it up and say, okay, let me find out what this is about. Let me see what this is about. And then they want to like go through it. And then when you see something like this, you're like, hey, these ones are serious. They are here for something very, very like serious. And the temple looks very, very like professional and serious and stuff like that. This is like the power of typefaces and like selecting the right typefaces for the kind of things you're trying to do. So I want to show an example of something I just like quickly mustered up today. So let's look at these two examples. Example one is like two of them are basically saying the same thing. One is saying open today, the other one is still saying open today. So I want to ask, like, please someone just reply in the comment section. When we say this first one is saying open today, second is, so which one do you think would work for a luxury hotel? Like which is it, case 1 or case 2? Like for a luxury, like 5-star, come in, you wash your hand, wash your car, everything. And which one do you think? Nah. If they want to go for one that looks luxurious, or you think that they won't pay for 1 or 2? Okay, I'm seeing some answers. One. How come? I never told you what they were. But just by looking at it, everyone is getting the answer correctly. It's 1. So, and the other one can look like for maybe for a primary school or for like a secondary school, like, sorry, just gather your children and just put them in one place. Exactly. So these are like some of the ways typefaces affect like our decision making. Without even saying much, just from just this plain thing, they were not in color, they were not bigger than each other, they were saying the exact same thing, but just because of the way they look, you just determine that this is the one that makes sense for this kind of context. So this is how like our type choices influence like other people. Typography is a very powerful tool. We have to learn how to use it and harness the power very well. So yeah, you guys, thank you so much. I'm saying that like everybody got it right. Thank you guys so much. So now let's move forward. Okay, master font pairing. Now this is actually quite tricky, but it's something that yeah, you can master over time. One of the ways I mastered this when I started out was through looking at good font pairing on the internet. One thing I noticed that works very well, anytime you want to do like something like that is going to be in small letters, or that's going to be like the secondary fonts, most times go with a serif or a sans serif. Most times, 80% of the time, a sans serif works best. Like for the little words, and for scripts. I know we learned about scripts, and I know we learned about scripts. We learned about serifs. We learned about slabs. We learned about that like recently. So scripts and display fonts work well for like bigger words, like something like this knowledge. And you see courage is like a little word, it's a sans serif. So there are different ways this can be applied. It takes a lot of time and effort like to get into these things and begin to really know how they work, the nuances and the ins and the outs, like knowing what works best and what works best for this. Even like, now let's just even look at this particular place. We find that, okay, for this knowledge and courage, we find out that the knowledge is in script and the courage is in sans serif. But there's something here that was also applied that we've talked about earlier, which was does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what that is, like for this knowledge and courage? There's something we talked about earlier. I think it was the first one we talked about. I don't know if you guys remember. Okay, let me just go forward. If anybody gets it right, I'll find out. So what we talked about, like when it's becoming smaller, we increase the spaces. We can see that courage now, there's a lot more space in between courage than there is between knowledge. Well, generally, with serifs, with scripts, it's not good for you to have too many spaces in between scripts. Scripts are meant to be together, but because they are heading kind of fonts. So, as you can look at it, the bigger one has less space in between, and the smaller one has more space in between. It applies in almost every other aspect. You can see that, like, for every other thing here, the spacing is like really is more than the spacing in these other places. You can see the spacing here is more. Like, if you look at it, the spacing is just small because it makes more sense for when it is small for the spaces to be much. And like you can see that these are the principles that apply and intertwine between each other. So like no principle lives in isolation. As one is working, the other one is working. As I think Leah has been saying that nothing exists in isolation. We are all connected to each other in one way or the other. So these are some of the things that as you go together, you find out, okay, this knowledge actually links into this one. This actually links into this. This actually links into, okay, I think someone got it right. So I think he said spacing. So yeah, hierarchy is also correct. So I think yeah, that's it. And yeah, emphasis on a particular word. So yeah, all correct. I think you guys are like, you are following the class, and that's really great. Thank you guys so much. Like, you're encouraging me to do more because well, let's go forward. Let's see. What do we have next? Please stop me if I'm being too fast or you can't hear what I'm saying, please, because I know sometimes I go a bit too fast. So we're going now into So yeah, sorry, let's stay on font variant for a while. So these are just some of the possible font variant that we can have. These are some of the things I was going through. I don't know if you heard of Playfair Display. So Playfair Display is something that is like the display font, and it works quite well with Open Sans. If we look deep into it, you can see it works with Open Sans. It can work with maybe Inter. It works with like generally almost any typeface that is like a sans serif. It works quite well with it. So like those are some of the pairings that work quite well. Now a website that you can use to get fonts when you're looking, I think it's fonts, Google Fonts. Let me search that out. So you can, yeah. So you can search out Google Fonts and see yeah, what's possible. Okay, so like this is just an example of different sites that we can find fonts. You can search for it through category and stuff like that. You can search, okay, you're looking for a serif, you're looking for a sans serif, you're looking for a display, you're looking for handwriting, you're looking for monospace. These are all different fonts that have different meanings depending on the context you want to put them in. So, okay, I think we've talked a bit about this. Just give me a minute. Okay, so now I want to show us a bit of example of how we can use typography in different ways to, because I think someone is asking for examples on how we can use typography. So let's just dive right in and see what we can come up with. So this is just like you can use almost any software for this, but I'm comfortable with Corridor, so I use it. Any software you're comfortable with, you can use. So let's just write be better. Let's use that as our case study for tonight, for this afternoon. Be better. No, okay. So let's increase the weight of that. Let me try to find something that works. Okay, let's use Satoshi. Satoshi is a really good font. I like Satoshi. Good designers use Satoshi. Yes. So yeah, noted. So bring that in. So yeah. If we look at this right now, like this is just what it is. It's just be better. It's just really simple, and there's no character to it. Now let's say I want to make better like bold. I want to make better bold. I want to make better like stand out. Now there are different ways I can do this, and I'm going to take you through different ways we can do it. So one of the first things I'll do is I will try to, let's see if we can make this. Let's see if we reduce this. Let's give it like 70% black. And just like that, when you look at this, better just stands out like more. You will see B, but you will see better first. So this is very, very simple tricks. This is one of the things we learned in the first class with honors when you talk about color, changing hues. So I didn't really do much. All I did was change one, like just reduce the opacity of one color, and then the other one stood out. So now let's use more typographic techniques to fix this. So now let's bring this here. Let's make, okay, we've already done another one, which I didn't even notice at first this was all lowercase. Let me change this back. Sorry. So just like that, the beta also stands out in this case. But let's look forward again. Let's see how another way we can. So another way we can do this is, let's say, increase the size of the weights of beta. So let's increase the weights. Pam. So let's even take this back to being like the normal white that we know. We can even also make it like uppercase 2. And just like that, we have like the hierarchy is not that much. Yeah, this is something we must note. Like it's not, even looking at this now, I can tell that it's not that much. We can increase it. Now the thing about that, it's not a rocket science. It's not a one size fits all solution. It's something you have to train your eye on and see how you get better by the time. So sometimes when you feel things will work, if it doesn't work out, don't feel bad. Just like try something else until you find something that works. So looking at this, you can say, okay, this looks a bit bolder than this. If there's a way you can make this font also like bolder, do it. Like just to make sure that it stands out and if, like it's gets to where it's supposed to go, things like that. So just like that, if you look at this 4 ways we've done it, better stands out. So let's say we want to make B stand out. So let's bring that down. Okay. So yeah, So the way we can do that is maybe increase the size of this, really push it up and see what happens from there. Let's see if we can push it higher than that. Let's see if you can push it higher. Okay, I don't think it's going any higher. Then reduce the size of this. So yeah, we could reduce the size maybe back to light. And just like that, B stands out more. So there are different ways, like I said, I'm continuing to reiterate, there are different ways. There's not just a one-size-fits-all solution.